Today's podcast episode is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application.
Not many in this can understand. This the podcast to show you who I am. Conrad Cushman, the legend in the plans. Please listen every day to the showcase. The opinions and knowledge that anyone can take. Showing you how it is done. Proving I am number one. What a legend becomes. This is now my time to show you that I am here. This podcast just to make it loud and clear. By the fans, for the fans. Not many whose head can understand everything pro wrestling. It can never be you. Listen to the podcast here for the people. The best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin. The opinion and the lesson. Yes.
Folks, welcome to Everything Pro Wrestling. Everything Pro Wrestling is a show by the fans, for the fans. I am your host, Conrad Cushman, and we are here today with a video that is long overdue, but it needs some introduction behind it. Earlier in the year, we always do like a Royal Rumble contest. This year, it was for some gift cards. Whoever picked the right numbers got to win the gift cards, but we had to do a drawing for all the people that won with the right numbers. Simple, right? Well, the people who were runner-ups, I decided to allow them to pick a video for me to do, and Josh Burton was one of the runner-ups from Everything College Basketball. Make sure you check out their podcast. And Josh Burton came up with a very interesting concept that he wanted me to kind of do, and it was kind of a series that I want to call Book It, where we rebook things from the past with twist on them. And Josh had a very interesting one, and it was, what if WCW purchased ECW back in 2001 and they never went out of business? Interesting. You could take this and spin it a bunch of ways, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this one as we do this. But I'm going to start off with the intro here, and then we'll get into it because I've got a lot of ideas for what we could do to fix this up. So make sure you guys stick around for this.
Everything pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast here for the people. The best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin. The opinion and the lesson. Yes, everyday pro wrestling, they can never be you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining Everything Pro Wrestling as we are going through this Book It series. And this is just going to be installment 1. Josh won a contest for this, so we're going to kind of go through and do what we can for this. I'm actually not recording this live, which is how I usually do most of my videos. So I thought this would be kind of interesting, but there's not going to be a lot of editing, cut takes, and all of this. It's just going to be me talking about how I would rebook something. And I'll probably upload it to our podcast links. You guys can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify once it's time for that. But also, we are looking to make sure you guys show some love. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for us if you enjoy the videos that we are doing. And if you want to be notified anytime we go live, click the bell. Pretty easy way. And for anybody who has issues with it, always remember that you can go back in, hit the bell anytime you need to make sure you're getting the proper notifications. I know sometimes on YouTube they end up turning them off or people don't get the right notifications. So I want to make sure that I'm showing you guys a lot of love with this. But I don't want to waste a lot of time because I have to get through a year of booking because Josh gave me from until April is what I'm assuming all the way until Super Brawl. So a little less than a year, but a lot of things need to be accomplished in that short amount of time. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into this. And I think the first thing that we're going to have to start with is the roster. The roster is filled up with champions now. Now, we're going to start from, we have inherited ECW and we have the WCW roster. Cuts are going to have to be made. I'm not going to go through and tell you who I cut, but I am going to tell you who I have picked up, what division they are in, and we're going to talk about the champions as well. So, at this time, the champions are going to be the following folks, and we're going to stick with kind of logic to where when WCW went out of business and where ECW was when they went out of business. The WCW champions, the World Heavyweight Champion we're going to start off with is the five-time WCW champion Booker T. And Booker T is also holding the United States Championship, which were unified towards the end of WCW. So, okay, we can take that. Cool. The television championship was something that was gone. That is a title that I want to bring back to the fold. So the ECW television champion is coming over with us, and that's going to be Rhino who's bringing it over, but we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with this championship. Stay with me here. Our tag team champions are Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare. The Cruiserweight champion is Shane Helms, and the tag team Cruiserweight champions are Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio. All right? So let us look at what we have all together here as far as a roster. Announce team we're going to start with. I have decided to cut the roster down and just go with a main announce team all together for the shows. The main announce team is Tony Schiavone, Cyrus, who many of you guys will know as Don Callis of today, and Mike Tenay. Those three I think would be fine on commentary for any show, and we are going to keep that. Now, as far as Thunder goes, we are canceling Thunder because why would we keep around the secondary show if we're not doing too well on the other one? So we need to refocus our brands and decide, hey, how are we going to get enough television time for all these people? We are going to keep our Saturday show that we always have, and we're going to just focus on Nitro for the most part at this time. Let's look at who we have for the WCW World Title Division. So Booker T is at the helm of this, and we are going to keep Scott Steiner as well at this time because you need someone who could talk on the microphone. We're going to keep Jeff Jarrett because Jeff Jarrett, instead of him starting up TNA wrestling, I figure why not keep Jeff Jarrett around? He was in a main event role. You got to keep the logic that Russo has already put into there because I'm not a fan of let's strip all the belts, let's do all of this. No, let's keep everything where it is. We are going to put Diamond Dallas Page into his own deal in the main event scene, but we're going to put a twist on it. Kimberly's gone. We are going to give Diamond Dallas Page a new Diamond Doll. Stacy Keibler is the person who we are going to put him with. So that will be a pairing in all of this. And I forgot to mention this because I see it written after the fact. Scott Steiner is going to no longer be with Medeja. He will be with Francine now. And some of these won't even matter when you guys hear what I'm going to end up doing. But I wanted to get some of the people from ECW and WCW who didn't have actual roles and they were just used in storylines to have a role and play parts in matches on the show. Kevin Nash is going to stay in the main event scene. We are also going to keep Goldberg in the main event scene. And also moving over to the main event scene, Rob Van Dam, but he is out with injury to start because remember, Rob Van Dam had a leg injury at this time. Rhino, who is the current ECW champ and he is the television champion, so he's coming in. And Sting, Ric Flair, and the Macho Man are all going to be in the main event scene for the world title. Now, the U.S. Championship, which is also held by Booker T, will have the following people. Coming over from ECW, we have Bam Bam Bigelow joining us. We will also have Buff Bagwell in that division. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Ho! We're going to keep Conan with the company. Lance Storm. Lex Luger, Ming, Mike Awesome, Steve Corino with Jack Victory, Tommy Dreamer, Hugh Morris, Canyon, Dustin Rhodes, and Justin Credible. I think that's a solid United States championship division in my opinion. And like I said, the US and TV, there's going to be some synergy. People are going to move back and forth. Same thing with the US and the world. If we want to elevate someone, we will push them to that next level. let's get into the television championship scene. And I think I want to put a big focus on Rhino's championship with the following people. Jerry Lynn is someone who I want to put a major focus on in that division. We will also have Balls Mahoney in that division. C.W. Anderson from ECW. Super Crazy. Animal, because Animal was still under a WCW contract at this time when I looked it up, due to his brother working there, John Laurinaitis. People power. Animal would be a fantastic addition to this. I'm going way back, and I'm going to bring Crowbar into the television title division as well. I always thought that Crowbar was an amazing athlete and someone who didn't get a fair enough shake, so bring him in with Daphne as well. Ernest the Cat Miller, I want to continue having him be entertaining, but also bring in a lot of the work that he was doing with the karate stuff before. Cool. Stevie Ray, Terry Funk, Rick Steiner, Mark Jindrak, Barry Windham, Mikey Whipwreck, and the Sandman I also have put in here. And Sandman's someone who I think could float between all three divisions. So he will be fine as well. He will be in that same like Tommy Dreamer type of role with Dreamer. Mikey Whipwreck, as we also said. Tag team division. Palumbo and O'Hara are running this, and I think tag team wrestling is very important. So the first thing we're doing is those cruiserweight tag titles. Sorry, boys, they gotta go. We don't have enough teams in here for us to keep those. So let us see who we have in the making at this point. From the tag division, Shannon Moore and Evan Courageous will be paired together as a team, still rocking the boy band gear, but they're not going to be 3 count anymore, and they have a new piece of work to bring with them. It's going to be the Wall. The Wall will be like their bodyguard, and he's going to just play in that role, and he will also be a wrestler at the same time. The Filthy Animals will remain a team with Tigress, so that's going to be Conan, Billy Kidman, I don't even know if Juventud was still around during this time, but Conan, Billy Kidman, and Rey Mysterio will be in a trio with Tigress. The Boogie Nights, Disco Inferno, Disco Fever, and Alex Wright. I won't do any of his dancing because I think by this time he was like Berlin. So Alex Wright and the Disco Inferno will bring back the Boogie Nights. We are also going to keep Big Vito and Johnny the Bull at this moment. And we will have the team of Chronic, Brian Clark, and Brian Adams, but they are going to be managed by somebody new. The Sinister Minister will manage Chronic at this point. We will also keep the team of Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo as a tag team. Vampiro and Great Muta will make appearances as the Dark Carnival from time to time, if Muta's schedule will allow it. The Impact players, Lance Storm and Just Incredible, will be a tag team in our division. The Harris Brothers, Lash LaRue and Chavo will still make up a tag team because they were in Misfits in Action with Hugh Morris, but his name was General Erection. Terrible name, by the way. So we're going back to calling him Hugh Morris, but Chavo and Lash LaRue stayed together after all of this as a team. We are bringing over the tag team from ECW of Joey Mercury and Christian York. I definitely think those two were very underrated, and I think they were going to be a big deal in ECW at the time, so that's why I brought them in. Danny Doring and Roadkill, who were the ECW tag team champions at the time, so we're going to bring them in. The Blue Meanie and Nova will be a tag team as well. The FBI, which will have Nunzio, Big Sal Graziano, and Tony Mama Luke is also going to join the group. We will also have Johnny Swinger and Simon Diamond as a tag team. Hard to believe that Johnny Swinger is wrestling today. Not that he's bad, but it's just like, man, this dude's been around so long, and I forget that sometimes. And last but not least, a former tag team group that I think would be nice to see reform. The Natural Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham will be a tag team in this division as well. Last but not least, the Cruiserweights. Cruiserweight division will have Shane Helms, Nunzio, Kid Cash, Tajiri, Tony Mama Luke, Jamie Noble, Jimmy Yang, Kaz Hayashi, Rey Mysterio, Kidman, Chavo, and Lash LaRue. I know some of you are saying, bro, where's AJ Styles? He was in WCW. I think by that time I would have cut AJ Styles. He had a few nice moves at the time, and this is no disrespect to AJ at all. This is more so about the fact that if we had to cut some people, I don't think AJ Styles would have been somebody that we wanted to keep around at this time. someone who we would have probably sent to maybe a developmental camp. So it's not that I would have cut him. I would have definitely sent him to the power plant or did something else with him to make him a bigger star. But we don't need him on our roster at this point. So that's what it's going to be. I don't remember being super wowed by AJ Styles. He had some good moves, but AJ still needed to put in some of the work at the time, in my opinion. So I wouldn't have used him, just being honest. So I know some people are going to ask that. Now, who's running this operation? Another important question. Eric Bischoff. We are going to assume that he still got with his private investors and Ted Turner is no longer in charge. From that point, if I'm booking this the way I want to, Eric Bischoff has fired Vince Russo. Russo is gone, and due to him purchasing ECW, well, he purchased WCW from Ted Turner with a investment group, and then he purchased ECW according to what the Book It theory is, and he is going to purchase it, and Paul Heyman's creative services will be part of the contract. So Heyman will now be booking this creatively. And I think Paul Heyman would not book it the same way he booked ECW. I think it'll be a little bit different. And we're going to get into a little bit of that in a second here. But that's the setup right now for this. And I think it's going to be very interesting for you guys to check out what we're doing here. So the first thing that we're going to do, we have to talk about our first pay-per-view. What's it going to be? It's in April. What are we going to do to kick this thing off right? And I thought we go with, what was Bischoff's original idea? The Big Bang for WCW. This was going to start off everything right. And I figured that we would have purchased ECW, taken the time off in February. So we did all of the stuff in January, February. We took a little bit time off to show like, hey, there's new ownership. We're setting things up. And then we're going to come out, because all these logos would be new. You're going to see logos that pop up on here that I'm going to pull up that are old. It's just for the visual purposes of this. The idea of the Big Bang would be a pretty dope pay-per-view, but it's kind of the reset button with what we have for the roster right now. The Big Bang pay-per-view would have the following. We are going to have the Crockett Cup Finals to determine number one contender. So we will be building this up the entire month of March to the point to where we wouldn't have been negotiating with Vince McMahon. There wouldn't have been the buyout that would have happened. We would have focused on a Crockett Cup for tag team wrestling. Next up, the Crockett Cup would have had a big tournament, and I'm just going to jump to the finals for you. And I know it's easy to say like, oh, you're only booking pay-per-view to pay-per-view. I could have did it where we just went through each and every matchup in the tournament. I'm not going to do that for purposes of time on this video. But for the Crockett Cup Finals, I have Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman versus Joey Mercury and Christian York in the finals to open up this Big Bang pay-per-view. The winners of that match would be Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman. They would go over because I think we need to establish them as more than just cruiserweight wrestlers at this point. I think it's fun to wonder like, oh, what are we going to do here? Easy. I think Mysterio and Kidman need to be established as a tag team for right now for their roles. Next, we're going to have ourselves a veteran match here, which will have Rick Steiner versus Stevie Ray in this one. This would just be kind of a middle-of-the-road match, just showing like, hey, these are the two guys. We have them in the ring. Let them show what you can do, because you're going to have to give these guys chances to see what roles they fulfill. And for that one, I have Stevie Ray go over. For the Cruiserweight Championship, we would have Shane Helms versus Jamie Noble in this matchup. Jamie Noble was part of the Young Dragons, and he definitely showed himself that he can do a lot more than just be a guy with a mask on during his time in WCW. But Shane Helms is going to go over in this matchup, and I would like him to use the Vertebreaker to get the win here. But Shane Helms is booked as the winner for this one. Chronic will take on the Impact Players. Chronic with the Sinister Minister. A lot of people would be under the belief that Chronic is going to do the darn thing in this, and Chronic's going to get the victory. Not so easy. Chronic actually loses to the Impact Players due to the fact that they cheated with their cunningness, and Just Incredible and Lance Storm go over with Dawn Marie in their corner. Next, Sting, Luger, and DDP in a no DQ match versus Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman. Terry Funk has united with some of his ECW brethren, And you're going to start seeing maybe like a little bit of a divide, because some people would want that ECW, WCW matchup, and they're going to get it here. And it's going to kind of evolve into storylines for some of the veterans. But in this matchup, the winner in this no DQ match would be Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman. This is to help establish that these new stars in ECW are coming in here. They're not just going to be overlooked or jobbed out because Eric Bischoff bought them. So in my Paul Heyman way of thinking, Terry Funk ends up getting the victory here and penning Lex Luger. Vampiro versus Buff Bagwell. This match ends in a no contest because Mike Awesome interferes and puts people through some plunder, if you will, baby, as Dusty would say. They're going through tables. They're eating awesome bombs in this matchup. So there is no winner for this. It's just destruction so that we put over that Mike Awesome is a big deal. For the television championship, Rhino will defend the ECW television championship. We're going to keep that same look of the title, scratch off the ECW logo, and put WCW's logo on there. And the ECW title is defended, Rhino versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Duggan is destroyed in quick fashion by Rhino, and Rhino gets the win here. And for the WCW championship matchup, we are going to have Booker T defend his title against Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett in a triple threat match to determine who is going to be the new leader going into the Big Bang and what WCW is relaunching as. And the winner is going to be Booker T. Booker T ends up getting the victory in this matchup, penning Jeff Jarrett with the bookend. I think it's a solid way to go for the first pay-per-view for the Big Bang when you guys look at that. So I think that was a pretty dope way to get into this. Lots and lots of fun, in my opinion, to start off the show. And I want people to know that after this, the ECW tag titles, they get a shot at the tag belts. They end up losing to Palumbo and O'Hare. It just doesn't go their way. It doesn't go down the way a lot of people were hoping it would. And you know what? Perfectly normal. It's fine. Nothing to cry about here as far as that matchup happening. And I'm turning pages here in my notebook. I also have it on the iPad just in case. So if you hear pages turning, I apologize. That's me rustling. Let's get to our next pay-per-view. And I didn't go over all the pay-per-view names because I kind of wanted to bring them up and then you guys see them. Our next pay-per-view, which will be happening in the month of May, Mayhem, that could have worked, but I wanted to bring back something else that I thought would be fun, and it fits the guys that we just picked up. WCW Uncensored. Wow. We are going to have ourselves some crazy matchups here and see what we could do in this entire lineup here. So for this WCW Uncensored pay-per-view, we are going to have, for the television championship to kick off the show, Rhino will defend his title in a triple threat match against Rhino versus Super Crazy versus Crowbar with Daphne. Super Crazy goes over to become the new television champion by pinning Crowbar in this. Rhino is shocked, but Rhino has lost the championship, so he must move forward. Next, we are going to have ourselves a matchup that I would say a lot of people could say they haven't seen in a while. It'll be a tape fist matchup between Hugh Morris and Balls Mahoney. Balls Mahoney will go over getting the victory in this one by heavily taping his fist and knocking out Hugh Morris. We have C.W. Anderson taking on Ernest the Cat Miller. Anderson goes over. Sting and Lex Luger in a Falls Count Anywhere match take on Rick and Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers. This is going to play off of their feud from 1991, and Sting and Luger are still kind of doing this best friends gimmick here, but in the end, the Steiner brothers end up getting the victory here in what I would call simple fashion due to interference from Francine distracting Sting with her assets, and Lex Luger had Miss Elizabeth try to come out, but it was to no avail. Luger reveals that Elizabeth's back with him, and Luger eats the pinfall from Scott Steiner in this one. Next up, we have ourselves a Texas bull rope match, if you will. We are going to have a feud between Steve Corino and my son, Dustin Rhodes. And Dustin and Steve Corino are going to get into a war of words over Dusty Rhodes. And Steve Corino is going to fight Dustin in a bull rope match. This match is meant to get Dustin bloodied. Steve Corino's going to get bloody. This is supposed to be a messy match to show the brutality of some of the ECW wrestlers, but that the WCW guys could hang too. Corino goes over in this matchup. Tables match. We have Jerry Lynn versus Canyon. Jerry Lynn picks up the win with a pile driver through the table. A hardcore U.S. title match. Bam Bam Bigelow is the new United States champion after defeating Booker T on a Nitro episode. And Bam Bam Bigelow is the hardcore wrestler that we used to know. So he has challenged anyone to a hardcore match, and it is answered by Ming. Ming comes out there, and these two are having a back and forth brutal beatdown in all of this. And during it, Mike Awesome makes his way through the crowd, and he ends up power bombing Ming through a table, and Bam Bam Bigelow ends up capitalizing from the pinfall from all of this. The WCW tag titles are then put on the line in a 4-way elimination match. Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire, the current champions, defend against the Filthy Animals, Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman. They just won the Crockett Cup, so why wouldn't they be in here? Danny Doring and Roadkill, who are upset that they lost already to Palumbo and O'Haire, so put them in this. And the Harris brothers are in this as well. In the end, we would have Danny Doring and Roadkill be eliminated first. Then the Harris brothers and Palumbo and O'Haire end up losing the championships to Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio. The Filthy Animals are with gold once again. Love it. And in the main event, the WCW title is defended in a cage match with Booker T taking on Tommy Dreamer. And Tommy Dreamer ends up losing this match to the Houston Hangover by Booker T. Booker T gets the pinfall victory here, and I think that would send the fans home happy, and Dreamer ends up shaking his hand in a beautiful effort to show that they're united in the same company now. I think it's a feel-good moment that people would love to see. Dope. Now we're moving into the summertime here. Things are getting hot and heavy in WCW, and it's time to show a little bit of pride when it comes to what are we going to do next, and it's time for the Great American Bash. The Cruiserweight Championship we're going to open up with Shane Helms versus Chavo versus Kid Cash versus Nunzio. In this matchup, it is a back and forth, one pinfall to the finish, and Shane Helms gets the victory by pinning Chavo Guerrero in this matchup. Shane Helms retains his Cruiserweight Championship. The Boogie Knights, Disco Inferno and Alex Wright take on Evan Courageous and Shannon Moore with the Wall in their corner, and the Wall assists them with the win. Alex Wright is disgusted that he was betrayed by the Wall, but Evan Courageous and Shannon Moore get the victory here. DDP with Stacy Keibler will take on the Macho Man Randy Savage. Diamond Dallas Page picks up the victory over the Macho Man, rekindling their old feud, and really just setting up that like Macho Man and some of these older wrestlers are kind of just phasing out slowly. We're trying to give them legend matches, but we're putting over some other guys in the same time. Television Championship, Super Crazy versus Balls Mahoney. Super Crazy gets the victory. After Balls Mahoney tried to tape up his fist, he ends up getting caught with a roll-up. Super Crazy for the victory. Sting and Lex Luger versus the Impact Players with Dawn Marie. The Impact Players are out here, Lance Storm, Just Incredible, ready to take over, and they're talking crazy, and Sting's not allowing it. Luger is out there with Miss Elizabeth. Sting has accepted Lex Luger for who he is, and Sting and Miss Elizabeth are out here in the matchup. And there was a miscommunication at one point. Sting ends up missing the Stinger Splash going over. Luger turns around into a double super kick from Lance Storm and Just Incredible for the pinfall. 1, 2, 3. The Impact Players win. After the match, Lex Luger turns on Sting immediately after and just gives him a beatdown because Luger has taken the pinfall in every single match and he is tired of losing, and he is blaming Sting for this. The U.S. Championship match that we have up next will be Bam Bam Bigelow defending against Terry Funk. Once again in this matchup, Mike Awesome comes out and Bam Bam Bigelow is going to be out of the way on the apron. Terry Funk tries to fight off Mike Awesome, but to no avail because he is eating an awesome bomb behind the referee's back. And Bam Bam Bigelow wins with a headbutt off the top rope. Bigelow retains. Now we are going to have Steve Corino versus Barry Windham in a matchup. Steve Corino has Jack Victory in his corner. They actually get the victory in this matchup with a bulldog, and Barry Windham is taking a beatdown after the match, just getting an old-fashioned beatdown with the cowbell. You know how they get down. And Victory's out there helping stomp him, and this is when Dustin Rhodes returns to link back up with Barry Windham. I know I mentioned they were going to be a tag team. This is the moment when he comes out and he makes the save, and then Tony Schiavone on commentary I would have bring up, these guys were tag team champions in the early 90s together. Barry Windham and Dustin have always had each other's back, and they kind of fight off Steve Corino to have him go to the back. And in our main event, we are going to have the WCW World Championship be defended. We are going to have Booker T versus Kevin Nash. In this matchup, Booker T ends up retaining the World WCW Championship. He defeats Kevin Nash in what would be probably an okay match, but scissor kicks, Nash loses. Booker T comes out looking strong in this one for the Great American Bash. And I don't think that that's too much of an issue here for what we are trying to set up, what we are trying to accomplish with this brand and what we want to do. So you guys know, like I said, we are in the midst of some summertime booking with all of this. When are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? There's only one simple solution to all of this, in my opinion, and it is for us to take it back to one of the better pay-per-views for WCW, Bash at the Beach. So Bash at the Beach is back. You guys can see the little shark floating around. I love the logo for that. If you guys are looking at the screen on YouTube, Bash at the Beach is going to be an 8-match card. And this is a show that I want to be recognized as one of our bigger shows in July, because the WWE are doing these bigger pay-per-views like SummerSlam, but that's next month. We want people watching us first. So we build up to a Cruiserweight Championship match between Shane Helms and Chavo Guerrero. Shane Helms gets the win in a 30-minute, really good match. Chavo is basically put over in this matchup to look good, but Shane Helms figures out a way to get the win using the Eye of the Hurricane to get the victory over Chavo. Next, we have Jerry Lynn versus C.W. Anderson in a 15-minute bout that ends with a cradle pile driver to C.W. Anderson. Jerry Lynn gets the victory here. For the tag team titles, we are going to have another tag team four-way. Kidman and Mysterio defend the titles against Big Vito and Johnny the Bull, who racked up some wins on Nitro. Joey Mercury and Christian York are back because they've been trying to feud with Mysterio and Kidman. They want to reclaim that loss for the Crockett Cup. And Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham get into this match. Now, this four-way is one pinfall to the finish, and Dustin Rhodes gets the victory when him and Barry Windham hit a double bulldog on Big Vito for the pinfall victory here. Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham are once again the WCW World Tag Team Champions. Now, going into Bash at the Beach, the television championship is still on Super Crazy. He defends the belt against Crowbar and Daphne. Super Crazy gets the win with his triple moonsaults over Crowbar in what would be described as, I assume, a fantastic match for a short amount of time that they got. Steve Corino is then met up on Nitro. He had been getting help from Rhino because they had a previous relationship in the past, and Rhino has decided, you know what, I'm going to help this guy out just because. So Rhino and Steve Corino are now on the same team, and they're taking on Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman. This match is brutal. There's a lot of fighting in this, but Sandman ends up eating the gore and taking the pinfall as he gets the victory for his team in this matchup. For the U.S. title, Bam Bam Bigelow is finally challenged by Mike Awesome, the build-up that we were looking for in all of this. In this matchup, this is going to be a pinfalls count anywhere match because Bam Bam says the ring's not big enough for the two of them. In all of this, Bam Bam sets up for the greetings from Asbury Park. Mike Awesome is able to slide out, and Bigelow they have one of the ramps that's connected. Bigelow gets an Awesome Bomb out of the ring through the ramp, and Mike Awesome eventually pins him on the outside. 1, 2, 3. Mike Awesome is now your new U.S. champion after putting down Bam Bam Bigelow. I think that would be a holy bleep moment that anybody could really, really have fun with after that. There will be injuries after, and I think that Bam Bam Bigelow will receive some medical attention after that to have him heal up. We will also have Sting versus Lex Luger in a grudge match. In this, Miss Elizabeth tries to get involved, but Sting sends her away to the back. She knows not to interfere because Sting makes it personally. He makes it very clear to Liz that this is personal between me and Luger. I don't want you getting involved because it's going to get really nasty, this feud. And eventually Sting gets the victory with the Scorpion Deathlock. Luger is forced to tap out here. And in our main event, Booker T versus DDP. And during this matchup, we see people cut to the outside, and who makes his way to get interviewed but Rob Van Dam. He lets everyone know he is back. He is making his debut on this pay-per-view, and he's the whole effing show, and he is definitely here to see what the best competition has for him in WCW, dude. And Booker T versus DDP is a match that he's going to have his eye on. So Booker T versus DDP happens. Stacy doesn't get too involved in it. DDP and Booker T put on a clinic, and right when DDP thinks he has it, Booker T figures out a way to get out, and the bookend puts DDP to an end, and Booker T is still your WCW champion. Oh my goodness. Now, everyone's probably thinking, well, we've done all WCW pay-per-views. It has to be Road Wilds that's next, right? Wrong. We're going to bring back ECW Heatwave after this. ECW Heatwave will be our SummerSlam type show. We're going up against SummerSlam, so we have to bring the heat. In this one, Hugh Morris is going to reunite with Chavo and Lash LaRue after a losing streak to take on the Filthy Animals in a 6-man tag. Conan, Rey Mysterio, and Kidman get the victory in the opening contest. Buff Bagwell will take on Mikey Whipwreck, and Buff Bagwell will get the victory here at Heatwave with the Blockbuster. In a 2 out of 3 falls match, we are going to have the TV champion Super Crazy defend against Mark Jindrak. In a match that goes to the 3rd fall, Super Crazy gets the victory over Mark Jindrak, in which it would go Super Crazy gets the first victory, Jindrak gets the second one, and the third one, Super Crazy gets the victory with a nice roll-up that Jindrak could not get out of. In a Falls Count Anywhere match, we are going to have Chronic with the Sinister Minister versus the Harris Brothers. In this matchup, Chronic is going to get the 911 spot where they are going to choke slam the Harris Brothers off of the stage, and they're going to put them through dual tables because of something the Sinister Minister tells them to do. Chronic gets the victory here, and I think that's just the wave. I think that would be the smart way to go about this, in my opinion, when it comes to booking Chronic and what we want to do with it. In a matchup here, we are going to have Steve Corino and Rhino take on DDP and Nash in this match. DDP and Nash are going to end up fighting these two, and Steve Corino and Rhino get the victory via DQ because during the match they were cheating throughout, and the Macho Man Randy Savage comes out to make the save, uniting kind of some of the legends here because there's legends on the WCW side who aren't feeling as useful anymore. So we're going to bring them kind of together to show like, hey, we're united, man. Remember when we used to run this place? It's part of it. This is what I want to do. So we're good with that. Corino and Rhino get the victory here. The WCW tag team titles are being defended. Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham defend against Vampiro and the Great Muta in the Dark Carnival. In this matchup, though, Barry Windham ends up using his boot to knock out Great Muta, and they play back to their old Super Brawl matchup from many years ago, and Muta ends up taking the pinfall loss in this one after Barry Windham uses his boot to get the victory. Scott Steiner versus Tommy Dreamer. Scott Steiner uses Francine to his advantage, but you know what happens to her in the match. She eats a pile driver from Tommy Dreamer, and in the Steiner recliner, Dreamer passes out, but RVD comes out to make the save here. RVD is still not booked on the show, but RVD comes out to make the save on Scott Steiner from beating down Tommy Dreamer anymore. And for the world title matchup, Booker T will defend against Lance Storm with Just Incredible in his corner. Just Incredible tries to interfere several times, but Sting shows that he has Booker T's back in all of this, and he helps even the odds for this matchup, and Booker T ends up beating Lance Storm in what I would consider to be a hell of a matchup. He's going to do that twist sunset flip that he always hits. I know Cody likes to use the move now, but Booker T always used to do the flip, the turn, and then get the roll up on somebody. So I think that would be the perfect way for him to beat Lance Storm in this matchup. And now we're moving on to the fall time, and it is announced on the next night on Nitro that we are going to be dealing with War Games, as Regal would say. So, Fall Brawl, we are bringing back War Games for the pay-per-view, and that will be the focus of the event. We then find out that the captains of the two teams will be named the next week on Nitro, and the captains end up becoming Booker T for WCW, and Rhino will be the captain for ECW. We've been building tension between these two groups a little bit since they came in, and there's some issues to be had, so why not have the last two people who were world champions before all of this got united captain up, and let's see who's the better squad here. So Booker T and Rhino both make their teams, and here is the Fall Brawl card as we have it laid out. For the Cruiserweight Championship, we have Shane Helms taking on Tony Mamaluke. Shane Helms gets the victory with the Vertebreaker. Palumbo and O'Hare take on the team of the Blue Meanie and Nova. Palumbo and O'Hare go over. Terry Funk will take on Lex Luger, and Lex Luger finally breaks his pay-per-view losing streak by defeating Terry Funk. For the number one contender for the TV title, we have Tajiri versus Nunzio. This match goes to a time limit draw, and Super Crazy is ringside, doesn't know what they're going to do with all of this. Who's the number one contender, Tajiri or Nunzio? Wait and see what happens with that. Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo take on Danny Doring and Roadkill. Danny Doring and Roadkill end up going over, and the Nitro highlights then show that Rhodes and Wyndham lose the tag team titles to the Impact players during this. So now the Impact players are the World Tag Team Champions going into Fall Brawl. Now, the U.S. champion, Mike Awesome, will go up against the Sandman to defend the championship. How does this happen? Sandman goes on a nice win streak before this and says that he can beat the shit out of Mike Awesome because Mike Awesome has nothing for him. He's an original violent person from ECW, and he's not afraid of Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome power bombs the Sandman until he can't get up anymore, and Mike Awesome gets the victory over him, establishing his dominance as the U.S. champion. We have a match with Jeff Jarrett versus Stevie Ray. Jeff Jarrett is pissed at Booker T, and Booker T's brother tries to stand up for him because Jeff Jarrett's been trying to weasel his way back into a title shot. And Stevie Ray gets into the way to try to stop that, and Jeff Jarrett defeats Stevie Ray with a guitar shot, obviously, for the win. And I know some people out there broke 10,000 guitars, never drew a dime, but Jarrett's going to go over in this one. And now for the War Games match. The War Games will be similar to WWE rules. We're taking the top off of the cage due to the Brian Pillman injury that we all had seen prior to this. No roof, but there are pinfalls, and only way you can win is if somebody gives up for the team. So Booker T's team is made up of Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page, Nash, Sting, and Scott Steiner. And they're going to be taking on the team of Rhino, Steve Corino, Lance Storm, Just Incredible, and Rob Van Dam. Now, how do we play off of this one? Very simple, guys. We have to focus in on who do we want to make a star in this. So the numbers are going to start off like this. I have Booker T coming out for 1 for Team WCW, Lance Storm for 1 for ECW. So we rekindled the feud from last month. And then, obviously, who has the advantage every time? The heels. Steve Corino will then come out for the team, followed up by Sting, who comes out for his team. Number 3 for the ECW squad will be Rhino the captain. And their number 3 I have is DDP coming out next. 4 for the heels would have been Just Incredible. And number 4 for WCW was Scott Steiner. And 5 is Nash for WCW, and 5 for ECW, Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam ends up picking up the victory in this one by pinning Kevin Nash. Rob Van Dam looks like the hero for his team. We needed the cage roof to be off so Rob Van Dam could look good. This match would get bloody. You would have the chairs. You would do all of the crazy spots that these guys would want to do. Van Dam picks up the win for his team, and he is hoisted up and viewed by a lot of people as the next big star for everything that's going to be happening within the company over the next few months. And I am going through some of these pages here to see what we had next up. And I split this up over a long period of time, but our next pay-per-view for all of these events, it's October. You know we had to do it right? Like, there's no other way that you could put all of this together without having Halloween Havoc. Halloween Havoc is a staple in WCW, and that would be like one of the first shows that I said, I'm like, yeah, this is happening. It has to be brought back because so many people just love Halloween Havoc throughout. Okay, here we go. Halloween Havoc is going to be happening. For the television title, we are going to open up with an ECW three-way classic. We will have Super Crazy versus Nunzio versus Tajiri in this one. For the TV title, Super Crazy ends up losing the championship to Tajiri with a buzzsaw kick. Tajiri gets the victory here. We now have Chronic versus the Blue Meanie and Nova. Chronic and the Sinister Minister just destroy Meanie and Nova. Chronic gets put over in this one. For the WCW tag team titles, we have the Impact players taking on Palumbo and O'Hare, who have earned a rematch, but it is not enough to stop the Impact players here. They get a victory. CW Anderson takes on Vampiro. Vampiro ends up getting the victory with a top rope leg drop. Next, we have Jeff Jarrett, Scott Steiner, and Lex Luger versus Sting, Nash, and a surprise visit from the Macho Man, who we hadn't seen since he made the save from a couple pay-per-views back. And in this one, Sting, Nash, and the Macho Man get put over. Like I said, the legends are going to be used, but sparingly. So Sting, Nash, and Macho Man go over. The Harris Brothers versus Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham. In this one, the Harris Brothers had Steve Corino and Rhino come out, cost, and then there is a bloody beatdown with Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham just getting annihilated by Rhino and Steve Corino after the match. The next match, we have a special guest referee, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, as we have, this is a random match with Ming versus Hugh Morris versus Canyon versus Buff Bagwell. Ming gets the victory by putting on the Tongan death grip on Buff Bagwell. Why? Just because. Next, we have Jerry Lynn, Rey Mysterio, Conan, and Kidman taking on Mark Jindrak, Shannon Moore, Evan Courageous, and The Wall. And the Filthy Animals with Jerry Lynn end up getting the victory. And I think this would be a really cool moment to have Jerry Lynn kind of, establish his fun side. And as he's making his way up to the ramp, we're acting like we're short on time. And here comes Rob Van Dam as he's getting ready to take on Tommy Dreamer. And I want Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn to have this moment where they look at each other as they pass. More on that in a minute. Tommy Dreamer and RVD go out there. They put on a crusher match. Got to get the spot with RVD getting pile drove. But in the end, it's not enough to keep my boy Rob Van Dam down. He gets the win with the 5-star frog splash to remain undefeated here in WCW. WCW World Title match. DDP brags that he almost had Booker T and he wants one more shot at him. He gets that shot with Stacy Keibler in his corner, but not enough to beat Booker T. Booker T wins with the scissor kicks on DDP this time to show him why it is still his time to run the company. Next, we're at November, and some people love World War III, some people hate it, but we're not doing that. We have to go to the November to remember. And it is announced that Battle Bowl is going to be happening on Nitro instead. So that way we keep the same theme of the Battle Royal being in the pay-per-views. So for the Cruiserweight Championship, Shane Helms will take on Elix Skipper. This match almost goes to the time limit draw, but Shane Helms ends up getting the victory by putting his feet on the ropes and stacking up Elix Skipper to get the W. Conan, Rey Mysterio, and Kidman, they've been defending their tag team titles on Nitro against Evan Courageous and Shannon Moore. They cannot get the win, or not the tag titles. They try to get the victory over them on Nitro, Conan, Rey Mysterio and Kidman defeat Evan Courageous, Shannon Moore, and The Wall to get the victory in the 6-man tag. For the TV title, Tajiri is the champion, and he ends up having another triple threat match, and this time Nunzio gets the victory by pinning Tajiri in this matchup. Nunzio is now the new television champion. For the U.S. title, we have Mike Awesome getting ready to take on Ming. Mike Awesome and Ming have themselves a Donnybrook, but in the end, an Awesome Bomb ends up keeping Ming down onto the concrete floor, rolls him back into the ring, and Mike Awesome gets the victory. Sting versus Lex Luger in a grudge match. Once again, Luger is still not happy with what Sting did to him, using his forearm plate in his arm to make sure that Sting is getting beat down from all of this. But once again, Sting gets the victory over Lex Luger. And Sting says he has inspirations to go after the WCW championship eventually. We then move on to Scott Steiner versus Jeff Jarrett, who are still arguing that they should be the number one contender to face off against Booker T, and they battle to a draw in a matchup here. In a match that is titled Extreme Rules, Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn at November to Remember, and I hope they could put on those 5-star classics like they were. And once everybody sees, well, who's going to get the victory in this, Jerry Lynn comes up close, but he's no Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam gets the victory in this one in what a lot of people would consider a classic match. Respect shown between the two superstars. WCW tag titles. The Impact Players, who are the champions, will take on DDP and Nash. They were the insiders at one point, and now they have Stacy Keibler in their corner. But Steiner and Jarrett end up interfering to cost their old veteran partners the match. So the veterans are trying to stick together, but there's two groups of veterans is what we see here, with Sting being on the good side with DDP and Nash, and we have Steiner, Jarrett, and Luger on the side of just pure hatred. Now, for the WCW title, we have built this up to a very big matchup here. Booker T taking on Rhino with Steve Corino and Jack Victory in the corner. They took out Stevie Ray, and they have 2 wins in singles and in tag over Booker T, because Booker T was teaming with his brother at the time. Dustin and Barry Windham end up coming out to help Booker T even the odds in this matchup. Once again, Booker T is getting a lot of help to make sure he doesn't get screwed out of his title, but Booker T gets the win with the Harlem Hangover, like, easily on Rhino. Rhino is down. He could not kick out of it. Booker T retains. Booker T has been booked as a strong champion along with Shane Helms purposely. I thought that it would be a real cruddy way just to have people lose the titles so fast. I didn't like that, so I wanted to make sure that we were paying proper respect to the right people. Next, it's the granddaddy of them all. It is Starrcade for WCW. We talked about that Battle Bowl. Who was the winner of it? Sting. Sting ends up getting the victory in the end in Battle Bowl, winning that Battle Royal in the end. So he is next up to challenge for the WCW Championship after everyone was bragging and saying that it should have been them. For the Cruiserweight Championship, we are having a ladder match. Shane Helms versus Billy Kidman of the Filthy Animals. In this matchup, Billy Kidman ends up getting the victory, and he is the one to dethrone Shane Helms as part of the Filthy Animals. Next, we have Animal from the Road Warriors taking on Lex Luger. Lex Luger gets the victory by defeating Animal. Next up, we have ourselves a television title gauntlet match with Super Crazy Tajiri, Ernest Miller, Vampiro, Mark Jindrak, Hugh Morris, Canyon, Nunzio, who is the current champion, Crowbar, and C.W. Anderson. And in the end, once it comes down to the final folks, it comes down to C.W. Anderson and Super Crazy, and C.W. Anderson gets the victory with a mean spine buster, spine on the pine. C.W. Anderson is your new television champion. Buff Bagwell takes on Tommy Dreamer. He's doing the job to Dreamer with a DDT. We have Kevin Nash and Chronic taking on Jeff Jarrett and the Steiner Brothers. In this one, Jeff Jarrett and the Steiner Brothers get the win by pinning Kevin Nash. U.S. Championship on the line. Mike Awesome, who is the champion, takes on DDP with Stacy Keibler. Mike Awesome goes for the Awesome Bomb. DDP is able to slip out, and right when he tries to go for it again, DDP freaking gets out of it. Diamond cuts him. 1, 2, 3. Diamond Dallas Page is your new United States champion. In a bunkhouse brawl, we have Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham versus Steve Corino and Rhino. Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham finally get the victory by defeating Steve Corino in the matchup. Dustin Rhodes gets the pinfall, and they finally feel like they have vanquished these two for everything they did and the crap talking about Dustin's father, which would be the main premise of the story. And his father would still be alive, but Steve Corino is just trying to say he's the new leader of Old School. I think it'll be a well-booked storyline for what we end up doing with that. At Starrcade, we have the return, and this will just be built up through booking and talking on the microphone. Terry Funk versus Ric Flair, and Ric Flair comes back to defeat Terry Funk as he makes his return to WCW. 9 on this match card, we have the Impact Players defending the WCW Tag Titles versus Christian York and Joey Mercury. The Impact Players skate away by the skin of their teeth in this one, with help from Dawn Marie distracting Christian York and allowing Just Incredible to use the Tombstone Piledriver for the 1-2-3. We also have Rob Van Dam versus Bam Bam Bigelow, who is back. And Rob Van Dam defeats Bam Bam Bigelow, who was one of those people that he always wondered, could he beat him when he came to WCW. That's kind of what it's built off of. Rob Van Dam gets the win in this one. And for the WCW title, Booker T versus Sting in this matchup. Some of the heels try to come out and ruin this match. Does it happen? No, because one man ends up stopping them. Who could that be? Goldberg returns and ends up stopping the Steiner brothers. He ends up stopping Jeff Jarrett and everybody from interfering in this matchup. And Booker T hits the bookend to get the victory over Sting in a hard-fought matchup. Really good. Booker T goes out and he's leaving with the pyro going off around him. Booker T is seen as what we would call a big deal. Now we're going into January. January is a new year, right? So how do we kick this off? Well, we've been borrowing from some of these other pay-per-view events. It's ECW's Guilty as Charged, but it is now WCW Guilty as Charged. What do we have on the lineup here? Gregory Helms, Shane Helms, whatever you want to call him, challenges Kidman for the Cruiserweight Championship, but Kidman retains the title on Nitro. But this leads to a match where Chavo asks for a title shot after that classic that he put on with Shane Helms. He said he never really got another shot at it again. Him and Kidman go at it, but in this matchup here, it ends up turning out that the winner of it is Billy Kidman. Kidman gets the victory with the Shooting Star Press over Chavo. TV title, C.W. Anderson defends against the Sandman. Sandman looks like he has this one and in the bag, but the spine on the pine was enough to keep the Sandman down. C.W. Anderson goes over in a surprise victory over the Sandman. Match number 3 will be an Extreme Rules matchup with Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham versus Steve Corino and Rhino. Rhino ends up goring Barry Windham in half, and Dustin Rhodes eats the pile driver for the pin. Corino and Rhino get the victory here. Moving on with this feud. The WCW Tag Team titles, the Impact Players, will defend against Chronic with the Sinister Minister. And everybody thinks it's Chronic's time to win this matchup here, but it turns out that it is not. Chronic ends up getting beat on a fluky type of victory. Just a nice way for Lance Storm to look good in this matchup. They end up getting rolled up. A pretty simple way to lose, but it's seen as a fluke more. So that's the main thing I want to come across in this. So the Impact Players retain the tag titles. Rey Mysterio and Konnan take on Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo versus Vito and Johnny the Bull. And Rey Mysterio and Konnan get the win as a tag team in this one. DDP has an open challenge and says anybody from the back who wants to challenge him for his United States Championship, come on out here, beat me if you can. And Stacy Keibler's in the ring with him, and Shane Helms comes out, and Shane Helms actually gets the victory with the Eye of the Hurricane on DDP, surprising everybody. Getting out of several diamond cutter attempts, Shane Helms becomes the U.S. champion because he did such a great job in how we booked him as the Cruiserweight champion. We elevated him. So that's what I would have ended up doing with him. We have Disco Inferno and Alex Wright making the crowd mad in a segment of them dancing with Johnny Swinger and Simon Diamond. And this leads to Sandman, Dreamer, Balls Mahoney, come out and they clean house and just beat their asses to get the people popped for that one. Jerry Lynn versus Crowbar. Jerry Lynn gets the victory with the Cradle Pile Driver, who is on a mission to prove that he belongs here in WCW. After losing to Van Dam, he's very down on himself, and Jerry Lynn wants to show that he belongs. In a match to determine who the number one contender is, Rob Van Dam says he doesn't see anyone else who's better than him walking around here, so he should be the number one contender. Mike Awesome comes out, and he has been on a rampage, defeating everybody, and he's only lost to DDP in what he considers to be a fluke victory. Mike Awesome says that he wants to challenge Rob Van Dam at the pay-per-view for this. This is the matchup that we should have gotten when ECW ended, and this is where Heyman wanted to go with all of this. And in this number one contendership match, at Guilty as Charged, Rob Van Dam pulls off the victory by hitting not one, not two, but 3 frog splashes on Mike Awesome to get the win and become the number one contender. And we have Booker T versus Goldberg in the main event at Guilty as Charged. And in the end, we saw a lot of things happen, but Goldberg misses a spear and hits his head on an exposed turnbuckle pad. Booker T hits the bookend. Goldberg kicks out. He hits the spinning kick. He goes for the pin. Goldberg kicks out at 2, but Goldberg is down and out. He's feeling woozy. Hits a spear on Booker T, but when he tries to set him up for the jackhammer, he cannot. An axe kick to the side. 1, 2, 3. Booker T retains the WCW championship here. And now we have gone to what many of us would consider the final part of booking this entire show. And it's going to take place at the pay-per-view Super Brawl. And Super Brawl is just going to be based on a big match card for February because we want this to look big as WWE is going into WrestleMania. So for Super Brawl, Cruiserweight Championship to kick off the show. As you can see, I love doing that. Billy Kidman will take on Jamie Noble in a matchup. Kidman gets the win with the Sky High to defeat Jamie Noble. For the TV title, C.W. Anderson defends it against Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn finally proves that he belongs with a Cradle Pile Driver to get the win and show, hey, I can hang with C.W. Anderson. So Jerry Lynn ends up getting the victory here. Happy moment for him. Rhino takes on DDP with Stacy Keibler. In all of this, he just gores DDP and then he pile drives him through the stage. Rhino gets the victory over DDP. The Impact Players take on Rey Mysterio and Conan for the tag team titles, and the Impact Players drop the belts in surprising fashion to Rey Mysterio and Conan. Rey Mysterio ends up hitting the West Coast Pop on the Lance Storm and gets the pinfall victory. Now, cage match with the top on it this time. Steve Corino and Tommy Dreamer get into this battle of respect and who should be more respected and why. Steve Corino ends up handcuffed to the cage similar to Raven with his hands out, and Tommy Dreamer hits him with the chair. And in the end, while he's handcuffed, Tommy Dreamer DDTs a bloodied Steve Corino as he is bleeding as well. 1, 2, 3. Tommy Dreamer gets the victory in a short match that was all about respect, and he was just trying to prove who was the tougher between the two, and Dreamer gets the win. Next, for the U.S. title, we had Shane Helms taking on Super Crazy in this matchup. Super Crazy comes within an eyelash of becoming the U.S. champion, but Shane Helms ends up getting the victory with the Vertebreaker to take him out. Kevin Nash is the special guest referee as we have the team of Goldberg and Sting taking on Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett. Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett are just the angry two guys who try to get in here. Luger tries to interfere in this match, but Nash is the one who ends up stopping him. Goldberg and Sting get the victory over the two guys who think they're number one contenders all the time. Good win for Goldberg and Sting. Next, we have ourselves an Extreme Rules matchup here. It is a tag team freaking match that just breaks down throughout all of this. You're going to have Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka taking on Vampiro and Great Muta. This match is just going to be an all-out brawl. Muta's definitely going to be misting a lot of people in this. Vampiro is going to be bringing out fire, table bumps, all that stuff. But in the end, the team of Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka are going to pick up the victory. And for the WCW World Championship, Booker T versus RVD. This match has big implications, big match feel, no interference, just two guys who don't like each other, that live their lifestyles differently, that have a personal problem because they both want to be champion. Simple, right? In a match that ends up going 25 minutes, Booker T and RVD trade pinfall victories, but in the end, Booker T goes for the Houston Hangover and misses. The first time he misses it. He used it to defeat several other people. He misses it. Rob Van Dam goes for the 5-star frog splash. Booker T is able to get his foot on the ropes. Afterwards, Rob Van Dam gives him a 5-star frog splash onto the floor. Booker T is able to kick out of some other pinfall attempts, but in the end, on the third 5-star frog splash, in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3, Rob Van Dam is your new WCW heavyweight champion. And I think RVD, Rob Van Dam, would be the person that you could focus in on for the next year to carry that brand. And I want to know what you guys thought of this. Josh, hopefully I did this justice for you, booking this entire thing. I will probably end up premiering this on YouTube and then just going through the comments and talking to you guys about it. And I'll probably put this up as a bonus episode on the podcast. Took me about an hour to do that, so not too bad. I think I could have went into more detail and did some more things, but hopefully you guys enjoyed what we ended up doing here. I apologize for the rustling of the papers, some of the ums in between. I'm trying to read some of this. I scratched out ideas and I put new ones in. But it was really fun making this. So hopefully if you guys have any more ideas for the Book It series, you send it to me. And this was a lot of fun, guys. So thank you so much. I was glad to book from the Big Bang all the way to Super Brawl. And hopefully I did this new alliance with WCW and ECW some justice. So thank you guys so much for joining me. We are out for Everything Pro Wrestling. Peace.
Everyday pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast for the people, the best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin, the opinions, the lesson, yes. By the fans, for the fans, not many in this can understand, this the podcast to show you who I am, Conrad Cushman, the legend in the plans, please listen every day to the showcase, the opinions and knowledge that anyone can take, showing you how it is done, proving I am number one, what a legend becomes. This is now my time to show you that I am here. This podcast just to make it loud and clear. By the fans, for the fans, not many who's here can understand everything pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast here for the people, the best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin, the opinion and the lesson, yes. Everyday pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast for the people, the best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin, the opinions, the lesson, yes.
What's going on, Everything Pro Wrestling listeners? This is Jesse Carter over at the Pro Wrestling Shoot Podcast. The Pro Wrestling Shoot Podcast covers interviews from your favorite independent wrestling stars, along with some current AEW, Impact, and former WWE stars. We also cover some of your favorite classic pay-per-views from WWE, WCW, ECW, and Impact Wrestling. We also cover some current reviews on all AEW, WWE, and NXT pay-per-view events. Come check us out on all your favorite audio podcast platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Follow us on our Facebook and Instagram pages over at the Pro Wrestling Shoot, and follow me on Twitter at Carter Inc. That's CarderInc. All right, let's get back to Conrad and Everything Pro Wrestling.
What's going on, EPW Nation? It's your boys from the Everything College Basketball Podcast, Josh and Peyton, here to remind you all that college basketball season is right around the corner. Yes, we finally know it's right around the corner, and Peyton, there's only one place people should go for all the college basketball excitement.
Well, Josh, the only place to find all college basketball hoops all the time is Everything College Basketball. Everything College Basketball can be listened to on several podcast hosting sites like Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And we can also be found on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/everything college basketball.
Yes, make sure you are joining the group with a couple other 100 people and growing by the day as we march into year number 3 of the Everything College Basketball networking systems. Now, let's get back to Conrad and Everything Pro Wrestling.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at powerslam.tv.